All right, so you finally got a grain mill, you're milling your own wheat, you're baking that bread. Now the next step, how to actually store it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, if you are new, we talk about all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective, milling your own wheat, why you should be milling your own wheat, how to store it. I mean, all the things with actual, real, true whole grains. So if you are new, welcome. If you've been here more than 2 seconds, then welcome back. So like I said at the beginning, we're gonna be talking about how I actually store my bread, ways that I recommend of storing bread. This is a question that I am now getting almost every day. And so what better way to answer that question than with a video. Now we're also going to be talking about how to store muffins and cookies, things like that. So that will also be mentioned in here. But I know the main question I get is how to actually be storing your loaves of bread that you've worked so hard to bake, and now they've come out pretty and now you want them to last a bit longer. And we're also going to be discussing about how long the bread generally lasts as well. All right, so first up, let's talk about storing those loaves. I've actually stored my loaves about 3 different ways over the years, and so I'm going to be talking to you about that. The first way that I did it, and pretty much the easiest, probably what you already have on hand, are with Ziploc bags, the gallon size Ziploc bags. So this is all that I have left of a loaf that I've made. I need to make some more. So with this, of course, as they're cut, they definitely fit in here very well. Now, my loaves, if you follow my recipe, they are large, tall, 2-pound loaves, and they actually don't fit in one Ziploc bag. So I've actually done it where I've had the Ziploc bag, we put the bread in, it is sticking out at the top, and then I take another Ziploc bag and just upside down on top of that, so where it's fully encased in 2 of the Ziploc bags. And as you cut it, as it gets smaller, you can just condense it to 1 Ziploc bag. So that's probably something that you already have on hand, are the gallon size Ziploc bags, and they work very well to be able to seal it up. It does keep the bread soft. I've never really had a problem with it, except the fact that the 2 Ziploc bags together are a little awkward looking, especially if I'm wanting to give it to someone, not the prettiest packaging to put it in. So that leads to the next way that I started storing my bread, and that was with actual plastic bread bags. And do know that everything that I will be mentioning will be in the description box below. If you're watching this on a desktop, it will be down there. You'll probably have to just select more to open up the full description. If you're on a mobile device, go down here, you'll probably see a little triangle. Open that up and it should show you the full description as well. I know some of y'all have asked where links are. That's where they are. The second way I started storing my bread, and this was mainly when I started selling my bread, is to get actual plastic bread bags. Now this one is huge. This one is massive because when I ordered them, I kind of overestimated how big my bread was. This massive one here actually fits 2 of my loaves in it. I can do that, but generally speaking, you can also just put one of the loaves in here and then just tie it up, and that works well. And storing wise, they work very similar to the Ziploc bags. I find that it keeps the crust and the bread nice and soft. It lasts for about the same amount of times. Just the difference with these is these you have to buy. You probably don't naturally have them on hand. I've never found plastic bread bags like this in the store. You can hang on to the plastic bread bags that bread comes in at the store. The problem is that it may not be big enough for the large 2-pound loaves. But hey, if you've got them, definitely see if you can use them. But there are the ones that are smaller than these massive ones, and I'll be linking those below. Do you know that many of these do not come with twist ties? So again, I'll have to link that separately for that. So far those are 2 ways to do it. Now let's look at the third way that I've been experimenting with for the past couple of months. And that is with these super cute linen bread bags. This is a set I got off of Amazon, and it comes in a set of 4, and they are in different sizes. So this is kind of one of the smaller ones. This is one of the larger ones. You can kind of see the difference here, but these fit my loaves very well. They even fit larger loaves. So if I'm going for like a French bread or some longer loaf, they got the larger ones to accommodate that, and they're super cute. I mean, look, all you need is loaves. Super cute. And the reason why I got these is I wanted to kind of get away from plastic and have reusable ones, where the plastic ones, while you can reuse the Ziploc bags several times, and same with the plastic bread bags, I do reuse those as much as I can. Eventually they are going to wear down and you're going to want to throw them away. So with these are reusable, they're linen, and you can wash them. So you can always wash them and then reuse them. You're not relying on the plastic bread bags. And I know that people have a thing against plastic, so the linen ones are a way to go, and these are super cute. Now I have been using these for the past couple of months. I'm not sponsored by anyone, so these are my own opinions. And let me tell you the difference that I've noticed between storing them in linen bags as opposed to the plastic, anything that is plastic. And the biggest thing is the linen tends to dry out the bread faster. So just in about 3 days, I do notice that the cut side of the bread, so any bread that is cut, that does start being a bit more crusty, more dried out, as well as the crust. So that does make slicing a bit easier. It's not bad, but I do know that if I leave a piece in there just the next day, it is noticeably drier, whereas opposed to the plastic, it keeps the crust nice and soft. It keeps the bread soft, and so honestly, I mean, I go through bread fast enough where it kind of doesn't matter. If it starts drying out in the linen, that's okay, because usually by the time where I'm only able to do toast. Now the bread is not bad in a couple of days, but it is noticeably drier, where I would only really use that for toast or bread that I would be warming up, not necessarily for sandwiches. For sandwiches, it's a bit more crusty. So if you have those picky people who do not like the crust, that's something that you're gonna wanna avoid. And so the way to avoid that would be storing in plastic, or just use those pieces for toast, use something more fresh for your sandwiches. So those are my opinions for these. Again, I do like the linen bags. Another way that I try to keep it from being dried out is when the drawstring closes, you can see there's a little hole right there. So I try to tuck that under when I'm storing the bread. Also, if I have some in here that has already been cut, I do try to store that cut side facing down towards the counter, or at least where, air's not always circulating through it, because air is going to be circulating through these bags more than in the plastic, not as much as if you were to leave it out on the counter. Now, one thing I completely forgot to mention, a key thing with storing bread with any baked good, whether it's cookies, cakes, anything and muffins, you need to make sure that they are 100% completely cooled down before you store them. If you stick a hot loaf of bread in plastic, no bueno. It is not good. It will turn out soggy. Because it'll get steamy in there, and it ain't good. So make sure your bread is completely cooled down before storing. Also, one thing about these linen bags is I think these would be perfect for your artisan breads, like any sourdough, anything with that crust where you purposely want a nice crunchy crust there. They will store very well in here, because that crunchy crust will go soft in a plastic bag where it won't really in the linen. All right, so those are my tips for storing the bread loaves. Again, make sure that they are completely cooled down, and plastic does work great, but if you're wanting to avoid that, linen bags work great as well. But just know with the linen bags, I do notice it does start to dry them out faster than in a plastic bag. One question I get is storing bread in the refrigerator. I actually do not recommend that, because whether I'm storing it in plastic bags or anything, anytime I have put bread in the fridge, I notice that it definitely dries it out way faster, and it becomes quite crumbly in about 3 or 4 days. So while it technically does last a bit longer in the fridge, I mean, for the amount that it lasts, it then just becomes really crumbly and difficult to cut, and so it kind of just doesn't matter. So I do not recommend storing your loaves of bread in the fridge. Now, a quick note about freezing loaves of bread. I personally have never done this. I don't need to. We consume a lot of bread. I make 3 of my loaves about every 2 to 3 days. So we consume a lot of bread around here. And freezing, I have my freezers for other things. I have no reason to freeze. But if, say, you are a smaller household, or if you're taking a road trip and you want to take some bread with you, or whatever reason, I have had friends I've given bread to that they state it freezes very well, but you do want to slice your loaf of bread first. So go ahead and slice that loaf of bread, and you can store it. I would suggest like a gallon Ziploc bag, like a freezer Ziploc bag, or some people have wrapped it up very tightly in saran wrap. After it's been sliced, wrap it up very tightly in the saran wrap, maybe some tin foil around that as well, or some butcher paper, freezer paper, and then go ahead and freeze that. And then when you're ready to have a slice for toast, just pull out a slice, go ahead and toast it, and they say it tastes wonderful. All right, so that was all about the bread loaf. So again, make sure that it's fully cooled off before storing it. Choose between plastic or the linen bag, and then follow those tips as far as freezing. Now, as far as your cookies, your biscuits, your muffins, your cakes, things like that, honestly, you just kind of store them how you normally would store cookies and muffins. My cookies, I generally just keep in a Tupperware container out on my counter. So just make sure it has a good lid and it lasts for a good amount there as well. Same with cakes, just make sure they're covered. If they have to go in the fridge, then put them in the fridge for a certain type of cakes. Now muffins, you definitely want to make sure that they are completely cooled off before storing them, just like you do with bread. And then I usually just store them just in a Tupperware container. I store them on my counter because we do consume them pretty fast. Okay, so now let's talk about how long of an expectation bread from freshly milled grains lasts. And again, this is just from my personal experience. This will depend on how cold it is in your house, how humid it might be. I'm in Florida and summertime, hot, humid, oh my word, it gets bad around here. So just know that it may differ in your climate, but not by too much. So again, I store my bread on the counter in the bags, or I store them in my pantry in the bags. And I usually notice that, it lasts a good 3 or 4 days. About day 4 or 5, depending, is when you may start seeing those signs of a little bit of the mold growing, because remember, this is living food. This is real food that's still alive. So around day 4 or 5 is whenever I start seeing a bit of mold. If it's really hot in the house, that's when the taste might start going a little wonky. It starts smelling a bit fermented. So that's generally how long I see a loaf of bread last. Now my muffins, this really depends on if you put some fruit in the muffins or not, but out on the counter in a Tupperware container, those muffins are only gonna last probably about 3 days, maybe 4. Now they do last pretty well in the refrigerator. They will last longer, and I've noticed my fruit muffins, they do not really dry out in the refrigerator so long as they're in a good Tupperware container sealed off. So those I have had last up to a good week, where they're still tasting pretty good in the refrigerator. So on the counter with muffins with fruit in them, I would only do like 3 days. Maybe 4. Again, smell, you're gonna know when they go bad, don't worry. But that's the estimation for my muffins. My cookies last quite a while. Now I generally do oatmeal cookies or chocolate chip cookies, and again, those recipes, if you don't have them, they'll be in the description box below. But those actually last quite a while. Now technically they don't last quite a while in my house because we eat them, but I have had them last for easily up to a week. Those are excellent to take when traveling because they travel well. They stay good for a while as well. So especially we have vacation coming up, I certainly recommend taking cookies with you when you're on the road, so you still have some of that freshly milled grains going with you. Certainly take your bread as well. Just know it's not going to last super long with those long family vacations. Cakes, again, pretty much it all depends on the type of cake that you made, but I generally see those cakes, anything cake-like, usually lasts around the same amount of time as muffins. It kind of just depends on what you put in them to determine that. But with any of these goods, 3 to 4 days, maybe 5 days. It's just something that you always need to plan for. All right, so I really hope that this helps you guys. Again, this is a question that I have received a lot, is how to store your bread. If I have missed anything, let me know. If you have anything that you've tried that I haven't mentioned that works out as well, comment below so other people can see that. And be sure to comment, ask me any questions. Now do know that I'm getting a little overwhelmed with the comments right now. I have a lot of comments that I get to. It does take me time. If you want me a bit faster, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at grainsandgrit.com. And if you want me the fastest of all to respond to you, then be sure to join our Grains and Grit membership group. We have a private group on MeWe that I'm active in, and you'll be able to get me a lot faster with our private membership group, and details for that are in the description box below as well. As always, I hope that y'all have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. Happy milling, and I'll see you next week. Bye.